SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. It's often a struggle for managers to address poor performance effectively. And according to employment lawyer and co-founder of Edge Legal, David Dilger, it can lead to challenges like avoidance, ruinous empathy, or manipulative insincerity. He says managers need to be just as kind as they are clear, as he explains to Jeff Waters.
Well, Jeff, I think the real reality is clear is kind and unclear is unkind. That's the phrase that Brene Brown...
What do you mean by that?
Well, Brene Brown gave it to us. She took it from a 12-step program, and I think in my role as a lawyer, what I often see is, despite all of the big cases that all focus on the nasty things that happen, more often than not, poor performance or the management of poor performance is normally done by avoidance, or we engage what's called ruinous empathy or manipulative insincerity, which is taken from Kim Scott's fabulous book, Radical Candor.
Oh, my word. I can't let you get away with that without explaining what they mean.
Yeah. So look, ruinous empathy is when you're just overly nice. You know something's wrong, but you just don't tell anyone, and you focus more on the harmony over the truth. And I'll give you a really basic example of that. You go into any workplace and I bet you see a sign somewhere in the kitchenette that says wash up your dishes or put them away or something like that, or we haven't got a maid around here or something like that. When everyone knows that it's David who leaves his plates out all the time or leaves the coffee cups out or does whatever. And ruinous empathy basically is you're just so nice that you just let the problem keep on going over and over again. Or the other one is manipulative insincerity, which is that calculating type of approach where I'm trying to get you to do something without telling you you've done something either at a low performance or something of that nature. So what I might say is, I just want to move you onto a special project, which is really taking you away from the job that you were employed to do, because I just don't either have the time, the effort, or the inclination to have a discussion with you about your performance. And then there's also obnoxious aggression. And that's focused on, I tell it like it is, and you'll often hear managers going, well, David, I'm just that type of manager who tells it like it is because, that's just the way I am. The problem with that, there's no care in it. So, what you're really after in radical candor is challenging the behaviours and actually supporting the individual, or being hard on the issue and soft on the person. In ruinous empathy, you're doing neither of that, and nor are you doing it with manipulative insincerity. And obnoxious aggression is just focused on the compliance, which is just do what I do because I said, and I'm using role power. And I'd be saying to any manager who says to their team member, hey, I'm your manager, or I'm the general manager, or my title says this, or this is where I am, they've basically lost their ability to actually manage a team, because if you're on that path, you're definitely not being clear and kind. You might be clear, but you haven't got the second element, and that's the way to higher performance. The other aspect that I think you should do in anything that you are managing performance, you've got to take a people-first approach. Now, in my job as a lawyer, I'm seeing this trend in most disputes that I'm dealing with. We used to just have a dispute, there'd be a bit of conflict, we'd then go off to a court or a tribunal, pay some money, work out some settlement terms, and people would ride off into their respective sunsets. The challenge now is people are saying, I have an issue, but I'm not going. So deal with me, fix my issue, and now I'm staying. And that poses a significant issue. You don't get just to wipe your hands clean of your problems anymore. And if you're in that area which is you're unclear and kind and you're avoidant, you will then have the continuation of the problem, except the difference in this circumstance when they're staying is they're now emboldened. They're a protected species, and they're going to make things difficult. And the big issue out of all of that is your team is watching you fail to manage performers or poor performance. And in that circumstance, Professor Bob Sutton of Stanford said, your team's watching you 8 more times than you think they are. And accordingly, that is compounding their assessment of you as a manager. So the way around it is this: try and characterize more behavior as performance rather than looking for things like breach of a policy, breach of a code of conduct, breach of an enterprise agreement, something like that. What that then says is you as a manager are going to deal with performance slippage. I'm going to deal with you not meeting my expectations. And if you're worth your salt as a manager, you're saying, I will get you back up to the level where I expect you to perform. If you're choosing to cut and run, either through obnoxious aggression or some type of avoidant type of behaviour, what you're doing is you're actually saying, I can't manage my team. All of this requires you to jump on what I call the competency care seesaw. Now, the competency care seesaw moves all the time. If you're dealing with a poor performer who then suddenly got some problems in the home, a death in the family, something like that, then the seesaw balances more towards the care. If there aren't those issues, but we're regularly dealing with just regular performance failures or underperformance, what we do is we focus more on the competency, but it's a balance. And that's why the cookie cutter approach doesn't work. You need to jump on it at each time as a manager and work out which way you're going to balance it. And then my third element is always focus on taking reasonable action in a reasonable manner. Now, people will say, oh, David, what does that mean? It means I have to assess it in each of the circumstances. It means when I'm balancing my competency care seesaw, that I can change and have different outcomes and different manners of responding to individuals. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's just law of the jungle, but it's not. Your team will respect you because they trust that you're not going to be the cave person who can light the fire and burn the people. And that's what they will need first before they can rely on your competence.
That was David Dilger, employment lawyer and co-founder of Edge Legal. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week.